Forever Young Radio. I am Raleigh Culp. This is Bob Gilpatrick. It is 11:10 on Tuesday. We were a little late, but it's because we were so enamored with this amazing thing we're going to bring you today. So a while ago, about a month and a half, 2 months ago, maybe a little longer, we interviewed Miss
Hillary Russo.
Yes, and she has a podcast called Holistically Speaking. And when we were speaking with her, we were talking with her about a gentleman she had interviewed named Dan Buettner, right? And Dan Buettner is one of the men who created the concept of the blue zones. And so that's what we wanted to talk about today, what the blue zones are, how they can be studied and be used as a kind of a guide for a way of eating. So we're going to get in a little bit to that. Before I do, Bob, how are you?
Doing great.
Good.
It's Tuesday here, almost the end of July.
Yes, it's getting close.
Heading on towards the fall.
Yeah, the dog days of summer right now. Actually, we have our dog days of summer sale.
Yeah.
40% off, 11 different products. So go check that out. There's a lot of really good stuff in there. That was a good segue. I didn't even think of that. But there you go.
Good.
But anyway,
the blue zone thing, so people know what it is. So the blue zones are areas in the world where people live very long lives.
Correct.
Up, 100 years old and beyond. And it turns out that there are commonalities in these areas, these 5 different areas they've identified.
Mm-hmm.
They say they're going to be identifying more.
Yeah, actually, we were just looking on the website the other day. They're doing some studies to identify more than just the original 5 blue zones. And they're looking a lot in America, because there are some places in America that might be considered that. So that's exciting.
Yeah. So these blue zones are, people that are living a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan Buettner was a person who traveled to each of the blue zones and stayed there and met the people. And he's written numerous books that were bestsellers. This is one of them. It's not his most recent book, but the one that you can see here, Blue Zone Kitchen.
Right. Blue Zone Kitchens.
Blue Zone Kitchens. And it is really beautiful book because not only does it give recipes, but it tells stories about the people that he met in those regions.
Yeah, actually.
And he has photographs of them.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of thought was really cool, because as I was reading the beginning of the book and we were reading through it, he was talking about the traditions of eating and how, unfortunately, recently in a lot of these places, fast food and things like that have come in and started to change the way they eat, and thus they've seen incidents of diabetes and more chronic disease go up in these regions. So what he was focused on when he went there was to find the people who are older in the community, and actually he had to convince some of them to let him watch them cook. And that's where a lot of these pictures that you'll find in this book came from, which I thought was really, it's cool, because traditions are something that will be forgotten if you don't document them. And this is not only something that is traditional, but it's healthy. It's something you can get into, and it's something that most people wouldn't even really think of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Dan has, he's made this a whole project. He's made it part of his life's work.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan was a very accomplished person. Prior to doing this, he was a world champion, 3-time world champion cyclist.
Yes, I heard about that, actually.
Yeah. And he also was, he's a really great marketer. He's great with social media. He's actually started and sold a company before he started doing the Blue Zone initiative.
Yeah.
And so rather than just travel there and tell some stories about it, he puts out information that's very helpful. So you can learn how to live your life similarly to the people living in the blue zones.
Mm-hmm.
And his website's really cool. He has this whole challenge you can go through and take these tests, and then you can join up and follow along with the challenge.
Yeah, that's bluezones.com.
Yeah, and you can follow along and start to implement into your life the things that they do in the blue zones.
Yeah.
It's a big service he's done for the world, because he not only went and traveled there, he's like, all right, now how can I help people benefit from it?
Right. Yeah, and that's what you were saying is, so he was a cyclist that rode around the world, which is kind of cool. And so as he's doing this, the concept of this blue zones was actually he did this work with a gentleman named Gianni Pez and another one named Michel Poulain, and they published some studies and information in 2004, and the first place they found the original blue zone was actually Sardinia, right? And the when they looked at that, they realized that there might be other places like this, and so Dan, who was traveling to a lot of these places, decided to put it into practice. So he took a lot of the work that Gianni and Michel did and started going around and looking for these other places. So yeah, it's a great service to do, especially on a bicycle. No, I'm sure there were some planes involved.
Some of its islands areas,
right? You can't bike there.
And so Raleigh, the reason we decided to do this today is I just got back from Costa Rica.
Yes, that's why we're actually talking about it.
Yeah, and so Costa Rica has one of the blue zones.
Yeah,
it's on this peninsula on the Pacific side.
I'm going to put up a map.
Yeah.
And then while you're talking about it, people can look at this. So I'm going to put it up.
As I was heading home, I left from the airport in San Jose, Costa Rica. And I walked around. I was there an hour or two early. So I started walking around, looking at the shops and stuff. And there was a shop called Blue Zones.
Yep.
And I was like, what's that? I said, that can't be the Blue Zone thing that I'm thinking of. But sure enough, it was. He was selling the type of coffee that some of the people drink in the Blue Zones and different things, and selling his books. And I think he had it in there because Costa Rica had one of the Blue Zones. So as I took a photograph of the book with the recipes, came back, talked to Raleigh and Chrissy, and said, let's do some stuff on Blue Zones.
Yes.
And so here we are. And this is the actual book. I went and got it at Barnes & Noble. This is the actual book that I had taken a photograph of in San Jose, Costa Rica.
That's awesome. And Chrissy is actually out right now getting the ingredients. We're going to be making some of these recipes and posting them on our social and our YouTube as well. So keep an eye out for that. That'll be happening very soon.
Great.
But yeah, if you wanted to.
So the other places, you're putting the map
up? Yeah, I'm going to put it up right now, actually, if you want to go over
So you have Okinawa, Japan.
Mm-hmm.
You have the place in Costa Rica, which
Nicoya
Peninsula. And then how do you pronounce the place in Greece?
You're looking at Ikaria, I believe.
Ikaria, Greece. And then what's the one we have one in the United States.
That is Loma Linda. Loma Linda,
California.
And then the original, like I had mentioned, is Sardinia, Italy. A couple things on the map that I'm actually able to read. So it says in Loma Linda, California, stress-reducing, healthy diet practices of local Seventh-day Adventists rub off on the whole town. So in California, there was a group of Seventh-day Adventists who were eating a certain way, and that started to kind of rub off on the whole town in Loma Linda. And where Bob was visiting in Costa Rica, it's called Nicoya. It says water naturally rich in calcium and magnesium may help prevent heart disease and weak bones. So that's got like a built-in plus there with the water supply. The original Sardinia says daily wine, very important, and laughter help Sardinian men enjoy the longest male lifespan. Ikaria, Greece. This sounds like a very fun place. Napping occasionally, fasting, and drinking goat milk may add years to your life. So they like to take naps there. I get it. Then in Okinawa, Japan, they say dedication to family and friends lifts Okinawan women to the longest female lifespan. So men, Sardinia, females, women, Okinawa, Japan. Pretty cool. So there you go. There's a map. You can always pause it. I'm taking it down. All right. So one of the things I had to share as I was looking this up is there was a study carried out on the eating habits of the population in Uzaharia, Japan in 98, where the inhabitants grew very old with the quality of life. This was done by the Swiss research group Blue Zones in collaboration with System Biology, AG, the University of California, also in collaboration with the University of Rome. So there is other places that they're looking into as well, investigating new temporal blue zones in Italy, just outside of Sardinia. So that research still goes on, and they're basing it all off of basic lifespans, quality of life, and things like that, right? As I was reading through this, there's some really cool cooking tips. I wanted to share them with you real quick.
Mm-hmm.
A few cooking tips that you can use is use fewer ingredients. What he was saying is a lot of these places didn't have access to a lot of different ingredients, but they used the same ingredients in different ways. And so that helped to get all the good nutrients of these plant. A lot of them are almost all of it's plant-based. Using those consistently builds it up in your body, which is cool. All the good nutrients, vitamins, stuff like that. Add cruciferous vegetables, right? Obviously, we still talk about that today. You always want to eat veg with meat. Cruciferous vegetables are very good. Make beans tasty. In America, we don't like to make beans tasty very much. We kind of like put them there as an afterthought, maybe make a soup out of them, bean soup, add maybe more sodium than you need. What he's saying is add flavor to beans. That way, beans are like mushrooms. They take on the flavor of whatever you flavor them with. So, work with beans more. Finish dishes with olive oil. See, my wife, Christina, she is Italian. She always finishes stuff with olive oil. It's very good. Very good for your immune system, olive leaf. Very good. We actually have olive leaf extract.
Yeah.
And it's based on all the health benefits, a lot of heart health benefits as well. Supplement with fresh herbs and spices. Instead of buying them, make a little herb garden, right? That way you can go snip off your own herbs and use them right there. We have to redo it. But last year we had our own herb garden in the front yard, and we got mostly parsley out of it. But anyway, it was nice. You also don't have to spend the money on it. You grow it. It's right there. Grind it up. Fiber. This is important. And we talk about this on a lot of our shows. Fiber is super important. So all the beneficial bacteria in your gut requires fiber to eat and live and be healthy.
Yeah. And ferment.
Thank you. And in America, a lot of the stuff we eat, pizza, hamburgers, those type of things are normal American diet, very lacking in fiber.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important that you get not only, good fiber, like actually what's in our heirloom or our gladiator barley, but in our probiotics, we also have a prebiotic that goes along with the probiotic and the metabolites. So that way they have something to eat while they're there, because you could take in all that.
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
Hey, Siri.
Siri's talking with us.
Are you trying to... Did you see that? No, you should definitely, Siri. I don't know what you're talking about. But you should definitely use... prebiotics, which is the undigestible fibers, because that turns into the food for all those different probiotics that you need to thrive in your gut. So if you don't have that, you're not going to have good gut health. And then one of the best things I liked was enjoy meals with red wine. It says
red wine has resveratrol in it, and we know that resveratrol helps with the maintaining the length of your telomeres.
Exactly.
Which is really important for longevity, obviously. And so one of the things that Dan did as he looked at all the places, not only with the cooking tips, which is part of the longevity, but he came up with other things that he learned from there too. And one of them was know your purpose.
Yes.
And he said, especially when you wake up in the morning, know what your purpose is for your life and know what you're going to do that day that relates to your purpose.
Exactly.
Another one was related to diet, and they're recommending that you don't eat in the evening time.
Yeah, no, that I can attest to.
So it's like a intermittent fasting type strategy. One of the things we learned recently is that if you are on this intermittent fasting type of strategy where you're not going to eat, say, after 5 or 6 o'clock at night, they found that it's acceptable to eat little bits later in the evening, particularly chocolate.
Ooh.
And that it helps people to maintain their intermittent fasting, because if you know that at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock you're going to eat a little bit of chocolate, it makes it seem like you're not starving yourself or you're not depriving yourself.
Right, you're getting something. You're looking forward to it too.
So that was that. Another one is they talked about faith-based communities. So the Seventh-day Adventists,
Yep, read my mind.
and I think that part of what that helps with goes back to the first one. Know your purpose.
Right.
To follow a life of goodness, kindness, compassion. And they're not saying what faith-based community. They're just saying that a faith-based community can help with numerous other aspects.
Absolutely. And a lot of the times, if you think about it, when you get together as a community, just that action, and that's another thing he was talking about, where these people live, the roads are small. They're not made for cars. So people get more of an opportunity to walk and see people in the neighborhood and interact.
They walk to the marketplace.
Yes.
They interact and they see all their friends and they shop and they walk back home and they have friends over for dinner.
Right. And there's a lot more. You're not Uber Eats, having people bring stuff to the door, never leaving the house. They're out.
You eat by yourself or with the same other person all the time.
Yeah.
And that leads you to the fourth one, which is about the maintenance of healthy relationships.
There you go.
And
it's like I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. And because relationships can be very toxic and very, very stressful. You have a high divorce rate, especially in a place like the United States. 50% of marriages end in divorce. And a lot more people are kind of hanging on in unfulfilling relationships for certain reasons. And so one of the things that is very helpful in the maintenance of healthy relationships is learning nonviolent communication.
I agree. We have a podcast called How to Use Nonviolent Communication. If you go to boomerboost.com and you just look up nonviolent communication, you find a really good podcast. I had a question from Silverwings, The Kingdom Within. Welcome. Thank you for watching. She asked, I'm going to show it on the screen here. She asked, is it okay to go 10 to 12 hours without eating on a routine of 4 days a week? So I think what she's asking, is it okay to go 10 to 12 hours without eating approximately 4 days a week?
Yes. You can actually do it 7 days a week. And that's the idea of not eating in the evening time. So if you stop eating at 6 o'clock, that's your final meal. And say you go to bed at 10 and get up again at 6, that's 10 hours right there. Right? It's actually more than that. It's actually 12 hours.
So it's a little bit more,
yeah. And so that's what most intermittent fasting is you're not eating while you're sleeping and you're not eating just before you go to sleep.
Gotcha.
But you wait until you wake up the following morning
to break that fast.
Yeah.
Breakfast.
Break fast.
Break fast. There you go. Well, thank you, Silverwings, for that. We appreciate you watching. But yeah, so this is a great book. You can actually get e-copies of it as well. You can get them. They're a little cheaper. But if I like to cook, well, my wife likes to cook. She likes to have the book. Yeah. So definitely cool. Definitely very cool.
The other one, go to number 5?
Yeah, I was going to see what other secrets what do we got going on here.
We did the first 4. The fifth one is movement. So we were talking about walking.
Yep.
So if people are living in a situation where they don't walk to the market and that type of thing, what they're saying is try to incorporate natural movements rather than going to the gym to work out. Spend more time with natural movements like walking. And there's new research that shows that even people that are training for marathons would train in a zone that they call the number 2 zone. And so most marathoners don't run fast and don't run for long distances every day to stretch themselves, but rather very consistently over the years, they run much more slowly for short distances, but they do it every day. And then occasionally they'll work out harder, but their bodies tend to become much more capable if they do consistent zone 2 workouts over time.
Okay.
And the same can be said for lifting weights. It's not how much you lift Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, how heavy, but how consistent you are over the years
Gotcha.
is really what's important.
Gotcha.
So, the other one, Raleigh, number 6, is developing practices for dealing with stress.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about nonviolent communication, very, very good one. And right at the beginning, we talked about Hilary Russo,
Mm-hmm.
who's a certified Havening practitioner and teacher. And Havening is a highly effective technique for managing stress, especially as related to trauma from the past.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our stress is the way that we react to events based on it happening many times in the past.
Right.
And if it was at one time very traumatic, anything that resembles that occurs today can cause this triggering effect. And Havening eliminates that.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be extremely useful. So we have a podcast that shows people how to do Havening.
Absolutely.
And we also have the interview with Hilary, which went on for a couple of hours, where she talks not only about Havening, but many other things, including, how she helps people with counseling and diet and all like that. She's also a certified holistic nutritionist.
Yes.
And
she's got a program we talk about on our podcast called, actually, it's the name of the podcast. You want to look for it. It's Hug It Out with Hilary. She talks a lot about, in that one, about, using the power of touch because of Havening. And then she actually has a way, if you ever wanted to try it out, you could take the Hug It Out challenge. So check that out.
Yeah.
Boomerboost.com. Very cool.
Number 7 is related back to the diet. Eat lots of vegetables and other whole foods.
Right.
Just one piece of information here. They're recommending cruciferous vegetables, but you have to remember this is in relation to cooking.
Correct.
So they're saying cook with, right? So there are people that follow raw food diets,
Mm-hmm.
and cruciferous vegetables over time, eaten raw,
Mm-hmm.
will tend to damage some people's thyroid.
Yes.
So the recommendation is with cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, kale, to steam it lightly, which changes the acid content in the vegetables so that you won't damage your thyroid.
Yeah, we actually have a green apple kiwi ginger juice recipe that uses kale without steaming it. And in there, you mentioned, hey, make sure to let them know. You want to be careful if you're doing that every day. It could actually damage the thyroid. So yeah, take a minute to steam them sometimes so it can change that acidity level. And then that way, what you're doing to be healthy doesn't end up hurting you in the long run. You got to be educated on it. Don't just eat green stuff all the time unless you know what's going on with the acidity and the thyroid and stuff. Very important.
Absolutely. So, Raleigh, another recommendation is drink red wine with your meals. So that's great. Not everybody wants to drink wine. Mm-hmm. Some people's religion says not to drink wine. So there's a way to get the benefits of that from a nutritional supplement. So we have one that has resveratrol that has been extracted, and also quercetin.
Yes.
And so it helps in two ways. The resveratrol helps with your telomeres, as we've said. But there's another main aspect to aging, which is the fact that as you age, you have cells that are supposed to die off and get out of the way and make way for the new cells to come.
Mm-hmm.
And not all of those cells will die. So about 2% hang around, and they give off inflammatory cytokines, and they damage the cells in the area. When you take resveratrol with quercetin together, it will stimulate those cells to die off and make way for new cells.
A lot of those old cells are actually the ones that can get taken over by different cells, like cancerous cells and things like that. So those,
and they themselves can become cancerous.
Exactly.
So really great thing to know about. And the other thing, Raleigh, is in regard to longevity. A couple of things is, to a large extent, your longevity depends on your ability to create new stem cells.
Absolutely.
And we have a product that is called Alovea Immune.
Yes.
It comes from a special aloe plant in Madagascar. and it stimulates your bones to make more adult stem cells and release them into your bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have the resveratrol and quercetin, that will stimulate the old inefficient cells to die off, and then you also take a compound that helps you make more adult stem cells, you can regenerate yourself really well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there are things about the blue zones that, as we're suggesting, that you follow along with, but in addition, there's science that is in effect now, and products that you can get that will amplify the benefit of you practicing the blue zone techniques.
Absolutely.
So another big one is inflammation. So Dan Buettner talks a lot about inflammation, and that a big part of the blue zone success is they're eating foods that help reduce inflammation.
Correct.
Now, the stress management also helps reduce inflammation. So what we have to help you reduce inflammation is we have Gladiator barley and heirloom barley, which have superoxide dismutase in it.
Absolutely.
And you also have Boomer Boost that has trimethylglycine and anthocyanins and vitamins A, C, and E, and the like.
Actually, while you're talking about those two products, Silver Wings made another comment here, and I want to share it with everybody. It says, I think she meant to say, I must say that the Boomer Boost and Gladiator barley has changed my life. And the next comment says, I cannot thank you enough. And we can't thank you enough either for watching and attesting to that, because one of the things that we see a lot, because we've been doing this for 12 years now, or 12 years now. We've been doing this for about 12 years now. One thing that we see a lot is the quality of life. What we're talking about here, that's so important in these blue zones, the quality of life. That is what's helping these people live 10 to 15 years longer than the average person. That's what we see get elevated in many, many people. We have many, many people that come to us on multiple medications, with scheduled for surgeries, overweight, blood pressure problems, kidney issues. I mean, literally the list goes on. And what Bob's talking about here is with what we have is stuff that not a lot of people know about, right? Dan's ridden his bike a lot. He's went to these traditional places and learned the old school way of doing it. What we've been able to do is, especially with the barley and things like our lignans and probiotics and the Boomer Boost, is we've been able to take a lot of these ideas and nutrition and get them in one place.
Yeah.
So that way you don't have to ride your bike to the 5 blue zones. And when you combine this way of eating, this way of life, right, which is very healthy, with something that'll even amplify it more, that's when you get to that next level of health, right? And that's, I think, what a lot of us want to do, is be around long enough to see our kids grow up and make sure that they're happy and healthy like us. And this is a way to do it.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely, Raleigh. The last one, number 9, was to be part of a community that encourages a healthy lifestyle. So in the blue zones, that's what's happening. And they said, in California, the Seventh-day Adventists were doing this, and the whole community, even though they weren't of the same religion, were starting to participate.
It was rubbing off.
And so with this, if you're not a person that can be part of a community like that, tune in and join us on Tuesday and Thursday mornings with these lives, and you can become part of the community just like we're experiencing here today.
I mean, that's the whole point of it, because like-minded people draw like-minded people. We were talking about manifesting the other day, right? Putting it out there and getting back, right? And so when we do things like that and we share not just the information, but our experiences, sharing new information, that's when you're building the community. That's what you want to be a part of, right? It's great that we have good products and they work well, but to have that additional support from Jean and Stephanie and Lucy, everybody who works at our customer support staff, and then to have, good information to fall back on with all these podcasts. I think we have over live podcasts now. We probably have over 25, 30 live podcasts, plus another 75 pre-recorded that have a lot of this information in it. So, be a part of that. Join our Facebook Christina runs the Facebook group. She's out there, like I said, getting the stuff for the recipes tonight. We'll be making some videos, releasing some new recipe videos based on the Blue Zones, and we can start doing it together as a group.
There you go. Raleigh, thanks a lot. This was very
Absolutely.
good. Thanks, everybody, for watching our Live Forever Young Radio live.
Yes, that's
and
us.
We'll do it again on Thursday.
Yes, thank you, Silver Wings. Thank you, everybody who watched. We had a couple people in here today, so tune in on Thursday. We'll have some more info for you. See you then.